SpaceX, Elon Musk's sky-hopping baby thing that seems to get an awful lot of deals from the US government, has bought Elon Musk's own firm, xAI. Investors are seeing the merger as a bailout for the struggling AI firm. So yeah, just to keep it competitive, given how much grok is used on X, it's going to need a bit of a sugar daddy there to provide it with contracts and so on. But let's get into this a little bit and see exactly what's going on here. SpaceX has bought Elon Musk's AI startup, xAI, and will fold it into the rocket company. Musk says that the deal aims to build data centers in space, or up there somewhere, hovering around, powered by satellites instead of land-based facilities. He argues that ground data centers demand too much electricity and strain local communities. You get people demonstrating around their data centers. They're going to have a hard job getting up that high. The combined company now carries an estimated valuation of around $1.25 trillion. The merger links two businesses that both face heavy financial pressure. xAI reportedly burns about $1 billion each month. In the next story that we get to, we'll find that normally $1 billion is quite a lot of money. Meanwhile, SpaceX still depends on launches of its own Starlink satellites for most of its revenue. Musk says that a constant flow of satellites for space data centers will also provide a constant revenue stream for SpaceX, especially as satellites must be replaced every 5 years. Must be replaced? Yeah, I think there's a regulation that specifies they have to replace satellites every 5 years. Well, okay, we'd better do some more launching. In the near term, SpaceX and xAI still chase different goals. SpaceX focuses on proving its Starship rocket can support missions up into the alleged moon and alleged Mars via alleged missions. xAI races against Google and OpenAI in AI development. Musk also, of course, continues to run Tesla, the Boring Company, and Neuralink, which we featured on this channel before, all while Tesla and SpaceX have already invested millions of dollars into xAI.
Mafftopia technology, science, breakthroughs, discoveries, news.
Mozilla gets generous with their boundless cash reserves. Mozilla, creator and steward of the open source browser Firefox, which boasts an incredible 2.2% market share and falling, has been looking for something to spend their ever-accumulating piles of cash on. Mozilla plans to take on the AI giants by assembling what its president calls a rebel alliance. This means allocating funds to AI startups that may be disruptive to major players, like OpenAI and Anthropic, with up to $1.4 billion ready to deploy. Why? Mozilla has this kind of cash cow just coming from Google with their default search engine deal, and Google pays a lot of money for this, which, if you think about it, it kind of creates a bit of a conflict of interest. Mozilla would want, you would think, for Firefox to be the absolute best browser ever. But if they get too good, there's always that chance that they're going to threaten Chrome, Google's own everything, everywhere kind of cash cow baby. So if they're receiving all of this money, mainly from Google, what can they spend this money on, if not their own product? Just think though, if Mozilla actually remembered what their core product is, i.e. Firefox, and if they remembered that they have basically $1.4 billion available, instead of just throwing this money at these different seemingly quite random things, just random AI startups and so on, they could actually spend that money on Firefox itself, make Firefox the best browser on the planet, spend that money on marketing everywhere, $1.4 billion. Spend the money on bundling deals, on new laptops, phones, games consoles. Don't just use the money as seed funding cowpats to throw against the wall, hoping that one or two of them sticks and does well. Because most startups fail. AI startups in particular are starting up into an especially tough, competitive, and not particularly rewarding market. Instead, Mozilla should recognize the business that they're in, and it isn't AI. AI and browsers combined are a privacy nightmare. Scientists in Japan have announced a biodegradable plastic, but they're not the only ones. Scientists at Riken in Japan, working with the University of Tokyo, have developed a new plastic that breaks down in seawater within hours and decomposes in soil in around 10 days. This kind of makes a lot of sense, just given that an awful lot of plastic waste does seem to end up in the ocean. So a plastic that breaks down naturally in the seawater is pretty apt and might just be the thing that finally saves the planet. The rapid breakdown could well cut plastic pollution on beaches, in oceans, and of course on land. So the scientists announced the breakthrough actually in late November November 2024. In March 2025, Riken highlighted follow-up studies on further plastic-like materials that dissolve in the sea, showing similar supramolecular designs that still behave like normal plastics in use but fall apart in seawater. Then through mid-2025, news outlets such as Reuters and the BBC reported further lab tests and explained how the material can be processed and coated for practical product. Towards the end of 2025, ADA's group reported a related plant-based plastic made from cellulose and other FDA-approved biodegradable ingredients that also degrades fully in seawater without leaving microplastics. So it's such a good area to suddenly turn into a crowded market. These later papers and press releases focus on improving the toughness and flexibility, it's meant to be plastic, recovering over 90% of the raw material after it's dissolved and making the recipe cheap enough. I'll never have that recipe again for real-world applications. As of now-ish, early 2026, the work still sits in the research and pre-commercial stage, but there's growing interest, as you might well imagine. But as of yet, no mass-market product has rolled out. The newer Riken University of Tokyo plastic does stand out because it does several things at once. It keeps useful strength in normal use, but when it's exposed to seawater, it starts to fall apart within hours and then fully decomposes in soil within about 10 days. Tests show that it doesn't leave microplastics. Instead, it breaks down into components that researchers can largely recover and that act like fertilizer-type nutrients for plants. I suppose a fertilizer-type nutrient for a plant is fertilizer. In other words, it is recyclable and seawater dissolvable and fast degrading on land and microplastic-free, which is an unusual combination compared with existing biodegradable plastics. AI, oh that old thing, could be autonomously generating scientific hypotheses and conducting research experiments within the next 5 years. That's according to a research team in Japan. Oh no, they're not. They're in the US. That's according to a research team in the US. Two researchers, Robert West at EPFL and Agnes Horvath at Northwestern University in the US, their thinking is that, hey, AI already helps with coding, data analysis, and drafting papers, but the next big step would be for AI to decide which questions to study in the first place. That would shift AI from a support tool into an active scientific agent. What they're expecting is that AI systems will scan massive literatures and spot gaps, suggest new theories, design experiments, and even run some tests in simulation or in automated labs. At the same time, that humans must still choose which goals matter and set rules for evidence, transparency, and safety. Without strong guardrails, AI-driven science could amplify bias. How you just go where the truth is, create false certainty, or flood the field with low-quality ideas. Research slop. There is that danger that this will be Claudebot or OpenClaw for academia, which is a bit of a scary thought, given that we're already starting to see very sneaky malware sneaking into Claudebot agents, including some of the really popular ones, like so-called sleeper agents that just wait there undetected until some trigger phrase comes up, and then they wake up and pounce and do their malice. Just think if a similar thing happened with actual research, which then led into, for example, material science, production, kind of driving humanity down particular branches of research, which we might not see as particularly ethical. I mean, to be fair, that sort of thing goes on already. Just have to keep an eye on it, or hope that somebody ethically minded is. But once it's AI doing that, and it's not just behind closed doors, it's actually in a cabinet, and no one can really see exactly what it's doing, what it's thinking about, what it's plotting, what the several, probably 1,000 layers of malware are individually plotting, that's one that we probably want to just keep it constrained. So yeah, kind of a good point. Back to Japan now, and Japan has just completed a world-first test to pull rare earth-rich mud from nearly 6 kilometers down on the Pacific seabed near the remote island of Minamatsuroshima. The deep-sea drilling vessel Chikyu, run by the Japan Agency for Marine Earth Science and Technology, or JAMSTEC, received the first batches of sediment just this month, February 2026, after arriving on site in mid-January. The Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi says this marks an initial step toward producing Japan's own rare earth rather than relying so heavily on Chinese supplies. The Japanese government sees this test as a feasibility check before any large-scale mining, so their officials now need to assess how much rare earth the mud actually contains, whether they can separate and refine it economically, and what the environmental impact might be. Yeah, because you could imagine strip mining on the ocean floor. What could possibly go wrong? Quite a lot. If the project progresses, Japan plans a bigger trial around Minamatsuroshima as early as next year, aiming to pump hundreds of tons of mud a day and potentially secure decades worth of critical minerals, electric vehicles, wind turbines, and other technologies. Your brain health, yes, yours specifically, has been linked with certain types of body fat. Yes, yours specifically. In the UK, a large MRI study of nearly 26,000 adults have found that where people store fat in their bodies relates to how quickly their brains seem to age. Researchers identified 6 distinct fat distribution profiles, then compared brain scans, thinking skills, and neurological diagnoses across these groups. They saw the worst brain outcomes in 2 groups, one with especially high fat in the pancreas, and another skinny fat group with relatively normal BMI but high fat hidden in several internal depots. People in these high-risk profiles showed more grey matter shrinkage, more white matter damage, and higher rates of stroke, mood disorders, and cognitive decline than people with leaner fat patterns. So basically just stop eating. The authors say the results show that fat distribution, not just overall weight or BMI, can signal future brain health risks. In practical terms, 2 people with similar weight could face very different brain aging trajectories depending on how much visceral and organ-based fat that they carry. While we're on this emergency health kick, all of a sudden, your gut bacteria can reveal early signs of Parkinson's disease. Scientists in the Netherlands, led by J.D. Elford at the University of Utrecht, have pooled results from many animal studies to see how gut bacteria change in Parkinson's disease models. They find that key good bacteria, especially SCFA producers like Lactospiraceae CE and Ruminococcus CE, drop in animals with Parkinson-like brain changes. At the same time, bad pro-inflammatory groups, such as Enterobacteria CE, rise and link to worse movement problems and more brain inflammation. So the team is arguing that this gut imbalance may push the brain towards damage by weakening the gut and blood-brain barriers and overactivating immune cells in the brain. In rodent models, they see that changing the microbiome with probiotics, prebiotics, or fecal transplants can ease inflammation and improve movement, at least partly. They stress that this is still early stage work, but they say it opens the door to future Parkinson's treatments, where basically they'll be targeting not just the brain, but gut bacteria as well. So that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a bit of a medical science theme to today's stories, among other things. I hope you like this rapid news speedrun format. We'll probably do a lot more of these in amongst the deep dives and so on. So do get subscribed. We'll have another speedrun coming up later this week. If there's anything in particular that you'd like covered on this channel, do let me know in the comments. And if you think that I got any of the reported details wrong or missed out any critical bits, do let me know about that as well. And so I hope to get into a chat with you down below in the comments. Thanks for watching. Till next time. Bye.